आपने जो भी शोध में अपनी बातें जानी उसको हम सबों के सम्मुख रखें, अपना आशीर्वाद, अपने आशीर्वचन हम सबों को दें, हमें अनुग्रहित करें। करतल ध्वनि से हम उमेश सर का इस मंच पर स्वागत करते हैं।
Thank you very much. I have prepared a very small note on some facts about historiography of Sun cult. Since this pilgrimage culture is the theme of this conclave, first of all I will like to give a lot of thanks to Dr. Ashutosh Dwivedi ji. He had organized such a big conclave of scholars from different states for last 2 days. Today is the concluding day of the function. Eminent scholars had already participated in this conclave, and they had spoken various facets of Indian culture. Just now we have heard Dr. Akhilanand Trivedi. He had very extemporally spoken about the Indian culture. When he was speaking, I was just recollecting my student days when we had gone through Dasragya Yuddha, which he had referred. And about the advent of Aryans, he had very elaborately explained to us how the Aryans had come into India. Very rightly he had placed the original place of migration in Iran. Different views are about this. I will not like to say anything about that, but I express my deep respect and to Dr. Tripathi, who had apprised us with our culture. Now this is about Sun cult. Sun, as you all know, is as old as human civilization and culture. Not only human civilization, say advent of all kinds of living animals, including trees also. And we are very much known of the fact that without sun rays, survival of these races, these kinds of plants or human races or different animals is impossible. But unfortunately, sun couldn't get that much prominence earlier, though right in the Rig Veda, very few gods are mentioned. Number we are seeing these days, in such a large number, gods didn't exist during the Vedic, especially Rig Vedic period. But sun was there, Indra being the most prominent one. So about sun, a number of books had been written, a lot of researches had been carried out, and we find in abundance the deities of sun. And more so, Bihar is famous for Chhat. Chhat Brat is celebrated twice in a year, once in Kartik Mahina, month of Kartik, and other in probably Chaiti Chhat. Now, it is not only confined in Bihar, but it has spread all over India. And we see a lot of arrangements regarding law and order maintenance is being done even in Bombay, even in metro cities, and not only Bombay and Delhi, but in the south also. Maybe a number of people had migrated from Bihar and UP, and now Jharkhand earlier used to be a part of Bihar and divided Bihar. So sun is very prominently worshipped nowadays, and a number of beliefs are associated with the sun. Sun is supposed to be a god of curing diseases. You might be knowing skin diseases are get cured if you worship sun piously. Not only skin diseases, other diseases also. It is called a god of fertility also. People ask and pray for sons and daughters. Those who are not getting easy produce, they pray sun for to be blessed for sons and daughters. So it is on the aspect of historiography. The worship of sun. Now I will read out my article in short, because already earlier you have a lot of time has been consumed for a very interesting lecture. You may not be so much taking interest in my lecture because it is on historiography. The general worship of sun by the Hindus in their daily life and other communities in some other different forms continues since the most ancient times till today. It is one of such cults which goes back to the prehistoric times and is still very much popularly alive in India and the world. A popular cult in Bihar, Jharkhand, parts of UP, Odisha, MP, West Bengal, now partially in some metropolitan cities like Mumbai, Delhi, Calcutta, South Indian cities and other towns of India, where twice in every year people very religiously worship sun in the form of Chhat, Brat in the month of Kartik and Chaitra respectively. The sun worship is very old, and it has got a very old history like Indian culture with a very long continuity. Sun as an important life giver was worshipped on extensive scales throughout the world from early times. It was an object of awe and wonder, mysteriously a very highly worshipped god of great veneration from time immemorial. We have representation of the sun and sun worship right from the prehistoric times, and his representation as portrayal on the potteries of the Indus Valley are indelible evidences of its antiquity in India. Sun was accepted as one of the 5 constituent deities of the Panchayatan Puja in early medieval India. Its onwards march didn't. Historian A.S. Yedden has very rightly remarked, solar worship has been described as the real religion of India. It is difficult to understand how in the land of flooded sun science, where every phase and function of life dependent upon the kindly warmth of the sun and his destructive energy and power are felt in utmost extremes of the heat, it should have been man's business to win his favor and placate his wrath. It is one of the rare faiths of India which had its beginning in the earliest stages of man's existence and had continued in some form or the other to hold ground throughout Indian history. It attracted the simpleton primitive communities as well as of the complex civilized societies of India with a wide and extensive followers among the simple agricultural people on account of its beneficial impact on the agrarian life of the common people. It found entry into the palaces of the kings, courts of the ministers, the temples of the Brahmins, the shops of the businessmen, the huts of the poor, and the camps of the nomads, including the open courtyards of the huts of the most downtrodden and the metro cities alike. Its rays reached every nook and corner of the universe, and its worship continued in the whole world in some form or other. Panini, the great grammarian, in his famous work Ashtadhyayi, mentions several times of Suraj such as Pushan, Suraj, Savitri, Divakar, etc. Previously, it was believed that it had its beginning in the Rig Veda, but some discoveries in the prehistoric archaeology have pushed back its antiquity as back as to the Neolithic period in India and in many parts of the world also. The worship of sun was based upon the concept of the natural phenomenon as source of light, energy, wrath, and fatality. The deep sense of reverence of its beneficial qualities led to its representation in various symbolic forms in the prehistoric and proto-historic objects. Its worship was both symbolic and atmospheric. The sun worship in proto-historic period appears to have covered the whole of northern India as evidenced by the recovery from proto-historic objects. There was a vigorous and popular tradition of sun worship in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia also. Hence, it is presumed that proto-historic Indian sun worship might have been influenced by the traditions of the sun worship of Mesopotamia and Egypt, simply on the ground of India's cultural and commercial contacts with these countries. But this view lacks adequate supportive evidences. The astral religion did not play that leading role in proto-historic India as it did in Egypt and Babylonia. It is also almost certain that the cult of Shiva and Mother Goddess played very prominent roles than the sun in the Harappan culture. But truly speaking, the sun symbols in India have been traced from a period earlier than that of Egypt and Babylonia, as visible symbols on the proto-historic objects. Hence, borrowing of sun worship from these countries do not seem continuing the Harappan and Vedic culture. J. Muir, in his book, discussed the nature and personality of many solar dwarfs, Surya, Savitri, Pushan, Vishnu, etc., on the Vedic basis of the Vedic literature and compared them with their Indo-European and Iranian counterparts. Max Muller's Origin and Growth of Religion in 1970, published in 1978, studied the problem of origin of religion in general, and sun worship as found in the Vedic literature was casually referred to by him to illustrate his thesis. A Barth Religions of India and Hopkins' book, in a separate chapter of his book, writes about religious beliefs of the native tribes of India had shown many ancient tribes worship the sun god as the supreme spirit by feasts and rituals. Oldenburg, Die Religion das Veda, German, 1894, Berlin, also describes sun cult in India. Bloomfield, in his monogram, The Religion of the Veda, New York, 1908, also recognized a group of solar gods in the Vedic literature. R.G. Bhandarkar's Vaishnavism, Saivism, and minor religious systems stressed by 1913 emphasized the presence of sun worship in India ancient times. Such studies of the past religion largely confirms the prevalence of solar worship in the ancient times in India. It resulted into the emergence of a coherent and organic picture of the origin and growth of sun cult. Bhandarkar's work opened a new craze to researchers to initiate the study of solar iconography for the first time. J.A. Gopinath Rao enumerated various forms of images of Adityas and Navgrahas in his book Elements of Hindu Iconography. He made a comparison of sun images of the south and the north, concluded that there is no foreign influence in the South Indian tradition of the sun images, while North Indian sun images are influenced by Iranian traits. But he was much obsessed with the factual differences between the North and the South Indian varieties of the sun images, that he failed to elaborate the factors responsible or differences in these two. However, it aroused an awakening of interest in solar iconography as the very backbone of sun cult. H. Krishna Shastri had also made an attempt to highlight the sun cult worship. Jain Banerjee published an article on Surj in Brahminical art and focused on the evolution of solar iconography and narrated the stages of its growth. A few monographs appeared on the aspect of bhakti in the first quarter of the 20th century. McNee calls Indian theism in medieval India, published in London 1915. J.E. Carpentier's Theism in Medieval India 1921 had given sufficient light on about the sun. Hopkins' epic mythology, Strasbourg 1915, tells us a lot besides the Vedic literature. The epic is an evidence of it, and its popular as indigenous origins may also be seen in the literature. 𝐒𝐏𝐄𝐑𝐄𝐻, The Religion and Philosophy of Vedic Upanishads, describes the sun gods in the Vedic literature and their role in the Vedic rituals. Besides the above general works on the Indian art, Smith, Havel, Kumar Swami, R.D. Banerjee, and B.C. Bhattacharya also contain descriptions of sun temples and sun images. It is known for the increased importance of iconography, and a number of catalogues of the museums containing descriptions of sun images inter alia appear. They furnish first-hand materials for the scientific and systematic study of one of the important branches of the sun cult and iconography. Later on, monopoly of the Vedic study decreased, and emphasis was laid on the study of Smriti Puran materials as sources of Hindu religions. P.V. Kane in his book brought forth the Smriti materials on sun cult and described the role of sun god in various domestic rites such as Upnayan, Dev-Yagya, Namaskar, Samchopasna, etc. J.N. Banerjee's works on Surj, Adityas and Navgrahas provides us with a chronological study of solar iconography from earliest times to the medieval period. His description of the four-horsed Surj image of both Gaya in the Vedic tradition has also been done. He controverted the standpoint of Cunningham, who saw the Greek influence in these images. The Hellenized Iranian tradition of sun worship was shown to be at the back of it. From the Gupta period onwards, Indianization of the sun image became quite marked. Banerjee, in another article, Myths Exploring Alien Traits of the North Indian sun icons describe some prominent alien features of the solar iconography. D.K. Biswas described the combined worship of Surya and Shiv, where he emphasized the syncretic aspect of sun cult, particularly in respect of Shiv worship, and substantiated his thesis by taking recourse to an Indo-Japanese text. A number of articles published on Sun Temple of CONEACT, Madeira, Sun Temples at Martand, and the art of Lalitaditya, Muktapida, CONEACT Temple in Odisha, Mart and Temple in Kashmir are supplementary accounts of sun cult in India. The Puranas as sources of Iranian religions and culture had been engaging attention of scholars. D.R. Patil's Cultural History from Vayu Puran is very significant work to describe this sectarian sun worship as found in the Vayu Puran, but authenticity of dates was ignored. Similarly, Bharati Vidya Bhavan's Age of Imperial Unity, the classical age of Imperial Kannauj, also describes sun worship. Fertility aspect of sun god was recognized all over the world, and the ancient India took the lead. J.N. Senday's Foundations of Vedic Religion, his religion and philosophy of the Atharvaved Vedic religion, his religion and philosophy of the Atharvaved, the magical and medicinal aspects of such worship has been elaborately described as depicted in the Atharvaved. S.K. Day's study of sun worship and sect on the basis of epics is of extreme use, namely aspects of Sanskrit literature, Calcutta, published in 1959. V.V. Mirasi described three famous temples of Multan, CONEACT, and Kalapriya on the basis of Puranas. But the monograph of V.C. Srivastav, Sun Worship in Ancient India, Ideological Publications, Allahabad, 1972, is unique in several aspects, an authentic and comprehensive historical study. It represents successfully various aspects, facts of a study of sun cult and worship. But there are several problems connected with the sun cult which still need thorough re-examination in the light of the recent archaeological finds in several states of India. That's all. I have written a book also on sun worship in ancient India, a study of early medieval Bihar, in which I have described certain temples, Pandarak, in Saharsa there is a sun temple, famous sun temple, historical place. Professor R.K.Chaudhary has done a lot of work. Now he is no more. He was a great scholar, and on the regions of Saharsa, Madhepura, Begusarai, he had done a number of important classical archaeological works. So about Pandarak also I have described, which was not possible in that very small book to mention all the temples, but important temples I had mentioned. Also there is a chapter sun worship in Rig Veda, especially it is being published in my journal of Puravit Parishad. That's all. Thank you very much.
आदरणीय उमेश कुमार सिंह सर अभी हमारे बीच थे और